What's going on, fellas? I'm excited about this video, so I'm not gonna waste no time. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. When you think about competition, right, most men think competition has something to do with like football, basketball, you know, something sports related, hockey, stuff like that, right? Or even like if you think about competition, you could think about business, right? Businesses going against each other. We got McDonald's in competition with Burger King. Or we could take it a step further and think about politics, right? When it comes to election, you know, there's multiple people running for the same position. They're in competition with each other. But fellas, when you think about that, right? When you think about competition just starts on the football field, starts on the basketball court, or starts when you write that business proposal. Fellas, competition starts the moment that your eyes open. It starts the moment that you wake up. Think about everything that you go against, right? Everything that's causing friction, right? That's increasing the friction with you pushing forward with your goals and your standards, right? Let's talk about how you're in competition with the distractions. Let's talk about how you're in competition with your laziness, right? Let's talk about how you're in competition with your procrastination. Let's talk about how you're in competition with your comfort. You're always competing with that weaker version of yourself that just wants to sleep in, right? That just wants to take the easy route, that wants to skip that workout, put off the hard work, right? Say, I'm gonna just wait for tomorrow. And while you're there negotiating with yourself, right, trying to psych yourself up to do it, someone else is already moving. Someone else is already learning. Someone else is already training. Someone else is already building. And what you gotta understand, fellas, is just to be brutally honest, the world isn't gonna wait for you to figure it out. It's not gonna pause for you. It's gonna keep rolling. In this book, J.D. Rockefeller kind of gives us a little breakdown when it comes to comfort, right? He gives us the visual and how he handled comfort, right? Because as you can imagine, when you have a lot of money, it's a lot easier for you to get comfortable. It's a lot easier for you to get satisfied, right? We say it all the time. The closer you get to your goals and the higher you get on that mountain, the distractions get stronger. Those drinks get a little stronger. That junk food tastes a little better. Those chicks start looking a lot better. And that's exactly what J.D. Rockefeller understood. But in chapter 5, J.D. Rockefeller doesn't talk about competition as a game. He talks about it as survival, like it's a war. Not because he enjoyed conflict, but because he understood if you stop fighting for your future, somebody else is gonna gladly take it from you. So fellas, as you know, the game is not based on sympathy. I'm gonna go ahead and break down the 8 lessons of comfort that I took from this chapter that every ambitious man needs to hear. Now fellas, before I get started, I'm gonna go ahead and give you the disclaimer. Some of these lessons may make you uncomfortable, but that's good because they're supposed to. Let's go ahead and get started. The lesson number 1 is war is now. Most people wait for the competition to arrive. A lot of people wait for game day to start getting in the zone. But Rockefeller understood something different. The competition is already here. You don't enter the gym, right, when it's game time, right? You don't enter the battlefield when it's time for war. You already wake up on the battlefield. You already wake up in the gym. Think about it, fellas. When you apply for a job, you're competing. When you start a business, you're competing. When you're building your physique, you're competing. When you're creating content, you're competing for attention. Even when you're deciding who you want to become as a man, you're competing against who you used to be. The biggest mistake men make is acting like they have unlimited time. They think they'll start next week, next month, next year, or maybe they're going through a lot right now, right? Maybe their bank account is getting a little tight, right? Maybe the summer is coming, right? The weather's getting a little warmer. Those holidays starting to come up, right? Or maybe you got that call and you got a group of chicks that's coming to your city this weekend and they're gonna be here for a couple weeks and they wanna turn up with you. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna wait till your bank account reaches a certain level to make a move. You're gonna wait till those holidays pass through. You're gonna wait till your group of friends come to your city, have a good time for weeks and then leave. You're gonna wait until the chaos disappears. You're waiting until life settles down. You're waiting for that motivation to arrive. But while you're waiting, your competition is moving. And one day you're gonna wake up and you're gonna wonder why everybody passed you. And the answer is simple, because while you was bullshitting, tying your shoe, right? While you was calling time out, taking a water break, hence falling victim to distractions, watching Love Island, watching the NBA finals, kicking it with that chick, drinking with your boys every weekend, the race never stopped. While you was doing all that shit, the real race never stopped. Only you did. Let me get to lesson number 2. Number 2, fellas, comfort is your biggest enemy. Fellas, what I want you to do right now is think of an exact moment in your life, right? That you knew you needed to do something, right? Something needed to get done. but you didn't do it. You knew you needed to go to the gym. You knew you needed to make those cold calls. You knew you needed to start that YouTube channel. You knew you needed to leave those toxic relationships. You knew, but comfort won. And that's what makes comfort so dangerous, because it doesn't destroy your life in a single day. It steals it one compromise at a time. One skipped workout, okay. One excuse, okay. One delayed opportunity, okay. That one conversation you're afraid to have with your boss that asked for the raise, okay. Years later, your decisions are going to catch up with you. And all at once is going to hit you like a box of bricks, because it's going to be accumulated comfort. Make those uncomfortable decisions. Make those uncomfortable moves. Have those uncomfortable conversations. Because if you don't have those uncomfortable conversations now, imagine how uncomfortable it's going to get for you later. If you don't leave your comfort zone and hit the gym now, imagine what your body is going to look like 3 years from now. If you don't make those uncomfortable decisions and say no to going out with your friends and falling victim to FOMO so you can save some money, imagine what your bank account is going to look like 3 years from now. The results are going to show regardless whether you made the right decision or the wrong decision. But the results is something that you can't hide. If you see someone that's obese, that's the result of them living in their comfort. That's the result of them not taking their diet serious. That's the result of them not hitting the gym. If you see someone that's struggling financially, that's the result of them making poor financial decisions. These are things that you can't hide, fellas. They will eventually expose themselves. So make the right decision now, so later in the future, you could look like the results you made today. Let's get to number 3. Challenge is growth, right? When I say if it makes you uncomfortable, the nine times out of 10, it's probably good for you. So fellas, when we talk about competition, you gotta understand it has to be two sides for it to be considered competition. You can't be in a race by yourself and say that you're in competition. It has to be someone that you're going up against. And in JD's Rockefeller sense, there was a guy named Benson who was his biggest competitor. Now, before I get into this chapter, let me explain to you who Benson was. Not only was he Rockefeller's biggest competitor, at this time, Rockefeller controlled most of the oil industry. And Benson was trying to create a pipeline that basically would have broke JD's Rockefeller's grip on the market. Now we're talking about oil, fellas. This is a multi-billion-dollar market. So this isn't no small disagreement that they're having. Benson was coming to take JD Rockefeller's spot. Millions of dollars was on the line. Entire businesses actually depended on who won. For years, they fought over influence, position, customers, and control. And one of the interesting things in this chapter is how Rockefeller actually talks about Benson. Unlike most people, JD Rockefeller didn't talk about Benson with hatred. He actually talked about Benson with respect, because most people will hate anyone who threatens their position. But Rockefeller actually admired him. And the reason for that is because Rockefeller understood that strong opponents only build growth. Think back to the hardest parts of your life, fellas. The breakup, the betrayal, the rejection, the failure, the humiliation. Those moments hurt, but they also changed you. The strongest version of you won't be built through the comfortable and easy season. The strong version of you is going to be built when life demanded more from you that you didn't even know you had. And most times your greatest enemy becomes your greatest teacher. Not because they wanted to help you, but it's because they forced you to grow. They forced you to evolve. They forced you past your comfort limits. The man who never faces resistance will never discover his strength. Fellas, we can't say someone is the greatest leader of all time if they haven't won the greatest battle, right? We can't say this team is the greatest team of all time if they haven't won the biggest game of the season. The strongest man overcame the strongest trials and tribulations. Fellas, that's why in wildlife, when you see animals that have scars, they earn the biggest respect, because that indicates that you've actually been through the war. You actually overcame something. Those battle wounds indicate strength. And it's the same thing with your life, fellas. Let's go ahead and get into lesson 4. The way you can kind of indicate if someone's a competitor is when you guys are going for the same thing, right? Whether you guys are both trying to have the best burger on the block, right? Whether you guys are both trying to target the same audience, right? Whether you guys are trying to see who can score the most. Both teams are trying to win the same award, right? The championship. And when someone's a competitor, the way they kind of get that advantage over you is if they can target your weaknesses, right? That's why some of the greatest players ever, they do a lot of film study and they learn the opposing team's tendencies. Tom Brady is a perfect example of this. One of the, if not the best quarterback of all time, studied film more than anybody else. When he stepped on the field to begin a play, he could see by how the other team is moving where their eyes are going, how they're positioned, if they were going to blitz, if they were going to drop back in coverage.
My last year in my last Super Bowl I was a part of, I was 2 weeks of watching film. Friday night, I was just going through the film more. I knew Kansas City's defense better than they knew themselves. I knew their body movements, the way their linebackers moved, the way their safeties moved. Tyrann Mathieu, Nick Sorensen, Shavarius Ward. I knew everything they were doing. I got out there on the field. I looked up as I was walking the line of scrimmage and said, okay, they're blitzing.
This shit gonna be great.
And then I was dealing with it right away. I walked up, I said, okay, they're gonna bail to cover 2. Ball snap, cover 2. I knew I had the answers to the test. That's where I was great. That's where my magic superpower was. It wasn't how fast I could run. It was how fast I could diagnose what they were doing.
He knew their weaknesses. So let's apply this to life, fellas. First, your weaknesses will be tested. Your discipline is going to get tested, right? Your standards getting tested. People are going to test you. Your discipline is going to get tested. Your standards are going to get tested. Your patience is going to get tested. And most men fail because they're asleep, not physically, but mentally. They're drifting through life with no direction, no urgency. Then they're shocked when opportunities disappear or somebody come and snatch it from in front of their face. The relationship falls apart. The promotion goes elsewhere. Somebody comes and takes your bitch. The relationship falls apart. You've been working for this company for 5 years, haven't gotten a raise in the same position because somebody else got that promotion. You haven't made any profit in the business, now your business struggling. You stop making consistent YouTube videos, now your audience is leaving. The signs were always there, you just weren't paying attention. Winning oftentimes comes down to awareness. Seeing the things, paying attention to the details that other people ignore. Studying yourself, studying your day, studying your tendencies, and recognizing the threats before they become disasters. Staying awake and alert while everybody else is just going with the flow, sleepwalking. You gotta stay on top of it, fellas, because the greatest men, they pay attention to detail. Lesson number 5, fellas. Relationships create opportunities. Now, this chapter probably contains one of the most overlooked lessons. From a business standpoint, Rockefeller says that relationships create transactions, and transactions creates opportunities. The man who knows that nobody waits for opportunities, but the man who builds relationships creates them. Think about your own life. How many doors have opened because of a relationship that you've had? A mentor, a friend, through a recommendation, a connection. Someone believed in you before you. Nobody succeeds alone. A self-made man is probably one of the most biggest myths ever told, because nobody is self-made. Every successful person has been helped by someone. Don't get me wrong, fellas. I'm not saying that you can't reach certain levels and get to certain stages by yourself, but understand that connections will, for one, help you get further, and for 2, it will help you get there easier. I'm not saying be lazy, but I'm saying if someone with power and value put your resume on that desk, the chances of you getting accepted will be much higher than if you started from the bottom and nobody knew you. Lesson number 6, destroy obstacles. Rockefeller says he doesn't just meet competition, he says he destroys his competitors. Most people hear that and think about aggression, but let's look a little bit deeper. The real lesson isn't about destroying people, it's removing obstacles. Now let's look at your life, right? Now let's look at some of the obstacles in your life, whether it's procrastination, whether it's fear, whether it's the lack of skill, whether it's your excuses, your addiction to distraction, FOMO, fear of missing out, inability to focus. Those are the obstacles. Those are the real enemies. And until you can eliminate them, decrease the friction between you and where you're going, nothing is going to change. Because the greatest battles they're normally internal. Most men aren't losing to the world, they're losing to themselves every single day. One of my biggest obstacles was distractions, fellas. We could talk about digital distraction. I was on social media 7 hours a day, or we can talk about environmental distractions. Having myself in places where I had no business being, in the clubs every weekend, being around groups of people that I knew didn't have any goals, any real standards in life. No structure. Those were my biggest obstacles, fellas. And once I separated myself from those distractions, that's when my momentum began to build. Lesson number 7, retreat has a cost. Now this may be the most emotional lesson in the entire chapter. Rockefeller in our quote says, retreat means surrender. At first it sounds a little extreme, but think about how many dreams die quietly, fellas. Think about how many people have given up on their dreams, right? How many people have stopped trying, right? And it happens so quietly, like nobody holds a funeral for this. Nobody announces this. The dreams and the goals simply just fade away. The future athlete settles. The future business owner settles. The future creator, the future content creator, they just stop posting. The future leader just decides that average is good enough. Not because they couldn't win, fellas. It's because they retreated. They retreated on their dream. They retreated on their goals. They retreated on their discipline. They were treated on their standards. And years later, fellas, the pain that they feel, the regret that they feel, it isn't because of failure. They feel that pain and regret because they stopped trying. Now they gotta think about what could have been, right? What if I would have kept that? What if I would have kept that momentum? What if I would have just made 5 more videos? What if I would have just grinded for 6 more months? That's the type of special regret where you knew that you abandoned in yourself, knowing that you were capable of more, knowing that you had gifts that you never developed, knowing that you quit before your story was even finished. It's not because you lost, it's because you surrendered. And that's the tragedy that Rockefeller is warning against in this chapter. Let's get to the last lesson. Stand on your feet. The chapter ends with an interesting quote that says, crutches cannot replace strong and powerful feet. In other words, at some point, you have to be strong enough to carry your own weight. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to build your future. Nobody's coming to give you discipline. Nobody's coming to hand you confidence. You have to build those things over time with consistency, one decision at a time. One workout at a time, one uncomfortable decision at a time, one difficult day at a time. Strength isn't something that you're just born with, fellas. It's something that you have to earn. And every challenge that you overcome adds another layer to it. I wouldn't have the physique that I have if I didn't break down my muscles. I wouldn't have the confidence that I have if I didn't get rejected multiple times. I wouldn't be so fluent in front of the camera if I didn't shoot 100 videos. The easiest way to put it, fellas, is you gotta put the reps in. Can't be afraid to fail. That's the only way you're gonna build that confidence. The promises that you make to yourself, you gotta keep them. That's how you build self-trust, self-confidence. The biggest takeaway from this chapter, fellas, isn't that life is war. The biggest takeaway is that life rewards those who are willing to compete for the things that they want. Not with everyone else, but with yourself. Each day, right? The competition never stops. The question is, are you willing to keep showing up? Will you keep growing? Will you keep fighting for the man that you're capable of becoming? Because somewhere out there, another version of you exists. That version that wakes up at 5 a.m. every morning, that version that hits the gym 5 times a week, that version of you that eliminates distractions, that version of you that does at least 90 minutes of deep work on a daily basis, that version of you that takes advantage of his 5 to 9, that version of you that takes advantage of his weekends, that version of you that tracks his macros, that version of you that meal preps, that version of you, he exists out there. He's stronger, he's wealthier, he's healthier, he's more disciplined. And the only thing standing between you and him is whether you're willing to compete long enough to become him. That's all it is, fellas. Fellas, if you want me to break down powerful books and turn them into real life action plans, teach you how to build discipline, confidence, and a stronger mindset, and help you become the highest value version of yourself, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on all platforms. I'm gonna leave them in the description below. And if you're serious about changing your life, click the link in the description below. Book a call and we'll see if you're a good fit. But fellas, understand this journey is not for everybody. But if you're ready to commit, understand once you do, it's not just you anymore, it's us. And when you become a part of Hamza University, I refuse to lose. So you will too. So remember, fellas, competition never stops. So are you moving forward or getting left behind? It's time to perform.